You know what kills me? I see people making six figures, driving around in $50,000 vehicles, and they genuinely cannot understand why they're still living paycheck to paycheck. And then I'll meet someone making 40 grand a year who somehow managed to save up $100,000 in their investment account. And the difference? It's not what you think. It's not about how much you make. It's about one specific decision they made about their car that changed everything. Look, I need you to be honest with yourself right now. When was the last time you actually calculated how much your car is costing you? Not just the payment. I'm talking about the insurance, the gas, the maintenance, the opportunity cost of that money sitting in your driveway depreciating every single day. Because here's the thing. Most people spend more time researching their next phone upgrade than they do understanding the single largest wealth-destroying decision they make every 4 to 6 years. My name is Rayhan, and I spend way too much time thinking about why intelligent, hardworking people stay broke while making good money. And if you're someone who's tired of feeling like you're doing everything right but somehow never getting ahead financially, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because what I'm about to share with you completely changed how I think about transportation. And honestly, it's probably going to make you a little uncomfortable. But that's okay. Growth happens when we challenge the stories we tell ourselves. So let's talk about the $10,000 car rule. And before you roll your eyes and click away because you think I'm going to tell you to drive some beat-up jalopy that breaks down every week, just hear me out. Because the $10,000 car rule still absolutely works in 2026, but there's one critical thing you need to do that most personal finance gurus never talk about. And that one thing is the difference between this rule being amazing financial advice or completely setting you up for failure. But first, let me tell you why this conversation even matters. According to Experian's latest data, the average monthly payment for a new car in the United States is now $636. For used cars, it's $527. And the average American keeps their car for about 6 years before trading it in for another one. Now, here's what most people don't realize. That $600 a month payment, that's not just $7,200 a year. That's $7,200 of after-tax money, which means if you're in the 22% tax bracket, you actually had to earn over $9,000 to make those car payments. $9,000 every single year. But it gets worse. Way worse. See, everyone focuses on the payment, but the payment is just the beginning. You've got full coverage insurance because the bank requires it. That's another $150 to $200 a month for most people. You've got gas, you've got maintenance, you've got registration fees. When you actually add it all up, the average American is spending around $12,000 a year on their vehicle. $12,000 a year. That's $1,000 a month. That's $33 every single day. Now, you might be thinking, well, Rayhan, I need a car to get to work. This isn't optional. And you're absolutely right. Transportation isn't optional for most people. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is what changed everything for me. The question isn't, do you need a car? The question is, how much car do you actually need versus how much car does your ego want? Because let's be honest, and I want you to really be honest with yourself here. How much of your car purchase was about reliable transportation and how much of it was about how you think other people perceive you? How much of it was about keeping up with your coworker who just got a new BMW? How much of it was about proving to your family that you've made it? How much of it was about the feeling you get when you press the start button on a brand new vehicle? Look, I'm not judging you. I drove a $40,000 truck for years. I justified it by telling myself I needed it for work, that it was safe, that I could afford the payment. And technically, I could afford the payment. But what I couldn't afford was the opportunity cost. It's not just $600, it's what that $600 could have become. Let me show you the math that honestly made me feel sick to my stomach when I first calculated it. If instead of spending $600 a month on a car payment, you bought a reliable $10,000 vehicle in cash and invested that $600 a month into a simple index fund, averaging 10% annual returns, which is conservative based on historical S&P 500 performance, after 30 years, you'd have $1.3 million. $1.3 million from just that car payment alone. Now, some of you are thinking, okay, Rayhan, but I can't just drive the same car for 30 years. Fair point. Let's say every 6 years you need to buy another $10,000 vehicle in cash. You'd still have over $1 million after 30 years compared to having, let me check my notes, absolutely nothing except a 15-year-old vehicle worth maybe $3,000 if you're lucky. This is the math they don't want you to see. This is why car dealerships have gotten so good at making you focus on the monthly payment instead of the total cost, because the moment you see the real numbers, the spell breaks. Now, here's where most personal finance advice completely falls apart. They tell you to buy a $10,000 car and then they just stop talking. They don't tell you how to buy a $10,000 car without getting absolutely screwed. They don't tell you what to look for, how to avoid lemons, how to budget for maintenance. And this is the one thing you must do if the $10,000 car rule is going to work for you. You need to become mechanically informed. Notice I didn't say you need to become a mechanic. You don't need to rebuild engines in your garage, but you absolutely must understand the basics of how cars work, which models are reliable, and what warning signs to look for. Because here's the thing, buying a $10,000 car and then immediately spending $5,000 in repairs because you didn't know what you were looking at, that defeats the entire purpose. So let me break down exactly what mechanically informed means and how you get there. First, before you even start looking for cars, you need to do research, and I mean real research, not just scrolling through listings and picking whatever looks nice. I'm talking about going to Consumer Reports, going to RepairPal, going to forums dedicated to specific car models, and figuring out which vehicles have proven track records for reliability. For example, and this is just one example, there are many reliable options, a 2010 to 2015 Toyota Camry with around 120,000 miles can usually be found for $8,000 to $10,000. That vehicle, if maintained properly, will easily give you another 150,000 miles. We're talking about a car that could last you another 10 to 15 years with regular maintenance. Compare that to buying, say, a luxury German vehicle for the same price. You might get a really nice BMW for 10 grand, but that BMW is going to need a $2,000 repair every 18 months like clockwork. I've seen it happen over and over again. Now, once you know which models to target, you need to learn how to inspect a used car, and this is non-negotiable. You need to know how to check for frame damage, what clean engine oil versus dirty oil looks like, how to identify transmission problems, how to spot evidence of flood damage, how to read a vehicle history report properly. And here's the thing. All of this information is free on YouTube. You can literally spend one weekend watching videos and become more informed than 90% of used car buyers. There are channels dedicated to teaching you how to inspect specific makes and models. But most people won't do this. They'll spend $600 a month for 6 years on a depreciating asset because spending one weekend learning about cars feels like too much work. That's insane to me.
Now, when you actually find a car you're interested in, first, you always get a pre-purchase inspection from an independent mechanic. Not the seller's mechanic, not your cousin who knows about cars, a certified mechanic who has no skin in the game. This costs between $100 and $150, and it's the best money you'll ever spend. I cannot tell you how many financial disasters I've seen people avoid by spending $150 on an inspection. They'll find out the transmission is about to fail, or there's frame damage, or the engine has a slow oil leak that's going to become a major problem. And yeah, you might pay for 3 or 4 inspections before you find the right car. That's fine. You're still spending less than 1 month's car payment to potentially save yourself from a terrible decision. Here's what most people don't realize, and this is huge. When you show up to look at a car and you say, "I'd like to take this to my mechanic for an inspection before I buy it," the seller's reaction tells you everything. If they say, "Absolutely, no problem," that's a good sign. If they get defensive, if they make excuses, if they say, "Come on, man, it's fine, you don't need to do that," you walk away immediately. Because honest sellers with well-maintained vehicles have no problem with inspections. Now, here's the second part that most people miss. When you buy a $10,000 car, you need to have a maintenance and repair fund. This is critical. Here's what I recommend. Take that $600 monthly payment you're no longer making and split it. Put $300 into your investment account, we'll come back to this in a minute, and put $300 into a high-yield savings account specifically for car maintenance and your next vehicle. Because look, a 10-year-old car is going to need maintenance. You're going to have to replace tires. You're going to have to do brake jobs. You might need to replace the battery or the alternator. These things happen. But here's the beautiful part.
Even if you have a bad year and you spend $2,000 on repairs, you still saved $4,000 compared to making car payments. You're still coming out ahead. And after a few years of putting $300 a month into that car fund, you've got enough to buy your next vehicle in cash when the time comes. You never have to finance a car again. Now, let's talk about the psychological shift that has to happen for this to work, because this is really what it's about. You have to completely decouple your self-worth from your vehicle. And I know that sounds simple, but it's not. We live in a culture that has spent billions of dollars programming you to believe that your car says something about who you are as a person. That driving a nice car means you're successful. That driving an older, practical car means you're struggling or cheap. But here's the truth that successful people understand. Wealthy people don't care what you drive. They care about your net worth. I have friends who are legitimately millionaires, like verified multiple seven-figure net worth millionaires, and they drive 15-year-old Hondas because they understand that the car sitting in their driveway is not an investment. It's not a status symbol. It's a tool that gets them from point A to point B. Meanwhile, I know people making $60,000 a year driving $80,000 trucks, and they're one emergency away from financial collapse. But they look successful, right? They've got the nice vehicle, the nice watch, they go out to eat all the time. Look, who would you rather be? The person who looks rich or the person who's actually building wealth? Because you cannot be both. Not on a normal income. The math doesn't work. Now, you might be thinking, Rihan, I hear you, but what about safety? New cars are safer. Okay, fair point. Let's address it. First of all, a 2015 vehicle has basically the same safety features as a 2025 vehicle. We're talking about cars that are 10 years old, not 30 years old. They have airbags, they have ABS, they have stability control, they have crumple zones. The difference in safety between a 2015 Camry and a 2025 Camry is marginal at best. But more importantly, and this is what nobody wants to hear, you know what's really unsafe? Being so broke that you can't afford to maintain your vehicle properly. Being so financially stressed that you're distracted while driving. Having to work 70 hours a week to afford your lifestyle and driving while exhausted. Financial stress kills people. It causes health problems, it causes accidents, it destroys families. So maybe, just maybe, the unsafe thing is the car payment, not the 10-year-old vehicle. But what about reliability? Won't I just be stuck on the side of the road all the time? This is where mechanical knowledge comes in. If you buy the right vehicle and maintain it properly, no, you won't. I drove a 2007 Honda Civic for 8 years. You know how many times it left me stranded? 0. Not once. Because I bought a reliable model, I had it inspected before purchase, and I maintained it according to the manufacturer's schedule. Meanwhile, my friend bought a brand new Jeep, $60,000, and it was in the shop 4 times in the first 2 years for various issues. New doesn't always mean reliable. Remember that other $300 a month we're putting into investments? Let's say you're 25 years old when you start this. You buy a $10,000 car instead of financing a new one, and you invest $300 a month until you're 65. At a 10% annual average return, you'd have over $2 million. $2 million from just this one decision. And we haven't even talked about all the other money you're saving by not being in debt. Because here's what happens when you don't have a car payment. You have margin in your budget. You can handle emergencies without going further into debt. You can take advantage of opportunities when they come up. You can invest more aggressively in your career or your business. The car payment isn't just $600. It's $600 plus all the opportunities you miss because that money is already spoken for. So let me give you the actual practical steps to make this work. Step 1. If you currently have a car payment, your goal is to pay that loan off as fast as possible. Every extra dollar goes toward that loan. No new cars until this is paid off. Step 2. While you're paying off your current car, spend your weekends getting educated. Watch YouTube videos about car inspections, learn about reliable makes and models, join forums, read consumer reports. Step 3. Once your car is paid off, immediately redirect that payment amount into 2 accounts, half to investments, half to your next car fund. Step 4, drive your current car for as long as it makes financial sense. When repair costs start consistently exceeding $2,000 to $3,000 a year, it's time to start shopping. Step 5, when you do shop, you're looking for something specific, not whatever catches your eye. You've got your list of reliable models, you've got your budget, you know what to look for. You inspect everything. You get that pre-purchase inspection. You negotiate from a position of strength because you're a cash buyer. Step 6, you buy that vehicle outright. No loans, no payments, you own it free and clear. Step 7, you continue putting money into your car fund and your investments every single month. When this vehicle reaches the end of its useful life, you buy the next one in cash, and you never, ever, ever finance a car again. Now, let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in personal finance content, the identity shift. Because implementing the $10,000 car rule isn't really about cars, it's about deciding who you want to be. Are you someone who prioritizes looking successful or being successful? Are you someone who makes decisions based on what other people think or based on what makes sense for your goals? Are you willing to be uncomfortable now so you can be comfortable later? Because I'm not going to lie to you, the first few months of driving a 10-year-old car when your coworkers are driving brand new cars, it feels weird. You're going to have moments where you question yourself, where you wonder if you're being too extreme. But then something interesting happens. You check your investment account and you see it growing. You don't have that knot in your stomach when an unexpected expense comes up because you have money saved. You realize you haven't thought about your car payment in months because you don't have one. And then you look at your coworkers differently. You see them stress about money constantly while driving their luxury vehicles, and you realize they're trapped. They're stuck in a cycle they can't escape because they've tied their identity to their possessions. But not you. You broke free. This is about so much more than cars. The $10,000 car rule is really about learning to think differently about money. It's about understanding opportunity cost. It's about delaying gratification. It's about making decisions based on math instead of emotions. Because if you can master this, if you can resist the pressure to buy a car you can't afford, you can master anything in personal finance. You can resist buying a house that's too expensive just because the bank approved you for it. You can resist lifestyle inflation when you get a raise. You can build actual wealth instead of just looking wealthy. And look, I get it. None of this is easy. We're fighting against decades of marketing, social conditioning, and our own psychology. Every commercial, every billboard, every movie is telling you that you need the newest, the biggest, the best. But you know what's harder than driving a 10-year-old car? Being 65 years old and realizing you can't retire, working a job you hate because you have no savings, watching your friends who made better decisions travel and enjoy their lives while you're still grinding. That's harder. Right now, today. First, calculate how much your current vehicle is actually costing you per year. Include the payment, insurance, gas, maintenance, everything. Then multiply that by 10 years. Look at that number. Really look at it. Then calculate what that same amount of money would be worth if you invested it instead. Use any compound interest calculator online. Assume a 10% return. See what you're actually giving up. If that number makes you uncomfortable, good, it should. Next, pick one weekend in the next month and commit to educating yourself about cars. Watch the videos, read the forums, learn what makes a good used car. And finally, and this is the most important part, decide right now that you will never finance a car again. Make that commitment to yourself. Write it down. Tell someone who will hold you accountable. Because here's the thing, knowledge without action is just entertainment. You can watch this video, you can agree with everything I'm saying, and then go trade in your car next month for an even bigger payment. That doesn't help you. Or you can decide that today is the day you stop letting car companies steal your wealth. Today is the day you start building toward financial independence instead of just looking like you have money. The $10,000 car rule still works. It absolutely still works, but only if you do the one thing that most people won't do. Get informed, get intentional, and commit to the strategy long term. I know I've been pretty direct in this video, maybe even a little harsh at times, but it's because I genuinely want you to win. I want you to build wealth. I want you to have options in life. And I've seen too many people stay broke because nobody was willing to tell them the truth. Nobody was willing to say, hey, that car is destroying your financial future. So I'm saying it. Your car is probably the biggest obstacle between you and financial freedom, but the amazing thing is, it's also one of the easiest problems to fix, because unlike your income, which takes time to grow, or your housing costs, which are complicated to change, your car situation can be fixed in a matter of months. You can do this. I know you can. If this video helped you see things differently, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I make videos like this every week, breaking down the psychology and math of money in ways that actually make sense. And if you found value in this, leave a comment below telling me what your current car situation is and what you're going to do differently. I read every comment, and I love seeing people take action. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.